The unforgiving landscape of the planet Eltar stretched as far as the eye could see, bathed in the eerie glow of its twin suns. Jagged cliffs rose sharply from the cracked ground, casting long shadows over the barren plains. The wind howled through the rocky outcrops, carrying with it the scent of sulfur and decay. It was a world where only the strongest survived, a place where hope was a rare and fleeting thing. In the midst of this desolation, a young alien girl named Zura stumbled forward, her frail body barely able to withstand the harsh conditions. Her once vibrant violet skin had taken on a sickly pallor, and her golden eyes, usually so full of life, were dulled by exhaustion. Every step was a struggle, her limbs heavy with fatigue. She had been wandering for days, lost and alone, with no sign of rescue. Zura's people, the Kaltorians, had abandoned her here. In their culture, strength and perfection were prized above all else. Zura, born with a congenital defect that left her weaker than her peers, was seen as a burden. When their colony ship was forced to make an emergency landing on Eltar, the decision was made. They could not afford to waste resources on someone who might not survive. And so, Zura was left behind. She had tried to keep up with them, tried to prove that she could be strong, but her efforts were in vain. The Kaltorians moved on without her, leaving her to fend for herself in this hostile environment. Now she was barely clinging to life, her body pushed to its limits. As she trudged through the dust and rocks, Zura's mind drifted back to her family. She wondered if they thought of her, if they felt any regret for leaving her behind. But deep down, she knew the answer. In their eyes, she was already dead. A low rumble echoed through the ground, jolting Zura from her thoughts. Her heart pounded in her chest as she glanced around, searching for the source of the noise. Eltar was home to many dangerous creatures, and Zura had already encountered a few during her time on the planet. Each encounter had left her more battered and bruised than the last, and she wasn't sure she could survive another. Suddenly, a massive creature emerged from behind a rocky outcrop. It was a hulking beast, its thick, armored hide gleaming in the harsh sunlight. Its 6 legs thudded heavily against the ground as it lumbered towards her, its many eyes fixed on its prey. Zura froze, fear gripping her heart. There was no way she could outrun it, and she had nowhere to hide. The creature let out a deafening roar, its jagged teeth glinting in the light. Zura's legs buckled beneath her, and she collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her face. This was it. This was how she would die, alone and forgotten on a desolate planet. But as the beast closed in, a bright flash of light suddenly filled the air. A searing bolt of energy struck the creature in the side, sending it reeling backwards with a pained roar. Zura looked up in shock, her vision blurred by tears. Through the haze, she saw a figure approaching, their form silhouetted against the harsh light. The figure moved with purpose, their weapon trained on the beast as it struggled to regain its footing. With another burst of energy, the creature let out a final, anguished cry before collapsing to the ground, lifeless. Zura blinked in disbelief as the figure turned towards her, lowering their weapon. It was a human, clad in battered but functional armor, their face obscured by a helmet. They approached slowly, as if wary of frightening her further. "Are you all right?" The voice was calm, reassuring, and distinctly human. Zura could hardly believe her ears. She had heard stories of humans, of their resilience and ingenuity, but she had never expected to meet one, especially not here. Zura nodded weakly, her voice failing her as she tried to speak. The human knelt beside her, gently helping her to her feet. Up close, she could see the kindness in their eyes, the concern etched into their features. "My name's Captain Marcus Hale," the human said, his voice steady. "You're safe now." Zura's vision swam, and she felt herself slipping into unconsciousness. But even as the darkness closed in, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she wouldn't die here after all. Captain Marcus Hale carefully cradled the unconscious alien girl in his arms, his gaze sweeping over the barren landscape. Eltar was as hostile as it was desolate. and he knew they couldn't stay here long. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the jagged terrain, and with nightfall would come even greater dangers. He adjusted his grip on the girl, taking note of her frail condition. Her violet skin was cold to the touch, her breathing shallow and labored. She had clearly been through hell, and Marcus couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for her. He had seen too many innocent lives lost during his time in the galaxy's far reaches, and he wasn't about to let this girl become another casualty. "Captain, we need to move." A voice crackled through his earpiece. It was Lieutenant Jessica Vance, his second in command. She was a seasoned soldier, with a no-nonsense attitude and a sharp mind that had saved their team on more than one occasion. "I know," Marcus replied, his voice tight with urgency. "We'll head back to the rendezvous point. The dropship should be able to pick us up from there." As he began to move, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end, and he instinctively tightened his grip on the girl. He glanced around, his eyes scanning the shadows for any signs of movement, but saw nothing. Still, the unease lingered, a constant reminder that Eltar was not a place to let one's guard down. They made their way through the rocky terrain, the silence between them heavy with tension. Marcus kept a careful eye on his surroundings, his senses on high alert. He had been through too many battles to ignore his instincts, and right now, they were screaming at him to be cautious. As they approached the rendezvous point, Marcus spotted a faint shimmer in the air ahead of them. He slowed his pace, signaling for Jessica to do the same. The shimmer grew more pronounced, and within moments, the outline of a sleek, black dropship became visible, its cloaking device deactivating as they neared. "Get the med kit ready," Marcus instructed as they reached the ship. Jessica nodded, immediately heading inside to grab the supplies. Marcus gently laid the girl down on one of the ship's cots, his expression softening as he watched her breathe. "She's in bad shape, but I think she'll make it," Jessica remarked as she began to administer first aid. "What's her story?" "Not sure," Marcus admitted. "But she was alone out there, and by the looks of it, she's been through a lot. We'll need to ask her when she wakes up." Jessica nodded, her attention focused on treating the girl's injuries. Marcus took a moment to assess their situation. The dropship was their only means of escape, but they still had a mission to complete. They had come to Eltar in search of a valuable energy source, one that could turn the tide in the ongoing conflict against the ruthless Droxian Empire. Without it, their chances of survival were slim. "Do you think she's connected to the mission?" Jessica asked, her voice breaking the silence. "It's possible," Marcus replied, his brow furrowed in thought. "We can't rule anything out, but right now, our priority is keeping her safe." As they worked to stabilize the girl, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that their mission had just become even more complicated. The Droxians weren't the only threat they had to worry about now. Eltar was a planet full of secrets, and they had just uncovered one that could change everything. When Zara finally opened her eyes, she found herself lying in a small, dimly lit space. Her vision was blurry, but she could make out the figures of two humans nearby. Panic surged through her, and she tried to sit up, only to be gently pushed back down by a firm hand. "Easy, you're safe," the voice said again, and this time Zara recognized it as Captain Hadel's. She blinked, her vision slowly clearing to reveal his concerned face hovering over her. "Where am I?" she croaked, her throat dry and scratchy. "You're on our dropship," Marcus explained. "We're here on a mission, but we found you out there." "What happened?" Zara hesitated, her mind racing. Could she trust these humans? She had heard stories of their brutality, their relentless pursuit of power. But Captain Hale didn't seem like the ruthless soldier she had been told about. There was a kindness in his eyes, a gentleness that made her want to believe he was different. I was left behind," she finally admitted, her voice trembling. "My people abandoned me because they thought I was too weak." Marcus exchanged a glance with Jessica, who nodded in understanding. "Well, you're with us now," he said firmly. And we don't leave anyone behind. Zara felt a wave of relief wash over her, but it was quickly replaced by a gnawing sense of fear. She had been abandoned by her own kind, and now she was placing her trust in strangers. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in days, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she had found an ally in these humans. But as the dropship began to lift off, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they were all in grave danger. Eltar was a planet full of mysteries, and they had just uncovered one that might cost them everything. The dropship soared through the skies of Eltar, its engines humming steadily as it cut through the thick atmosphere. Inside, Zara lay quietly on the cot, her thoughts a jumble of fear, confusion, and a tiny spark of hope. The humans had shown her kindness, something she had never expected, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead kept her on edge. Captain Marcus Hale sat across from her, his gaze focused on the small viewport that provided a limited view of the landscape below. His mind was racing, trying to piece together the puzzle of why Zara had been abandoned. The Kaltorians were a proud race, known for their strict adherence to strength and perfection, but to leave one of their own behind on a planet like Eltar, it didn't add up. "Captain, we've got company," Jessica's voice crackled over the ship's comms, breaking the silence. "Droxian patrols, closing in fast." Marcus's heart sank. The Droxians were a formidable enemy, ruthless and efficient in their conquests. They had been searching for the same energy source as the humans, and now it seemed they had been detected. "Evasive maneuvers," Marcus ordered, his voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "We need to lose them before they get a lock on us." The dropship veered sharply to the left, its engines roaring as it accelerated. Zara clutched the sides of the cot, her heart pounding in her chest. She had heard tales of the Droxians, stories of their merciless attacks on weaker civilizations. If they caught up with the dropship, there would be no mercy. Jessica skillfully piloted the ship through the treacherous landscape, weaving between rocky outcrops and diving into narrow canyons. The Droxian ships pursued relentlessly, their weapons firing bright streaks of energy that barely missed their target. "Hang on," Jessica shouted as she pushed the ship into a steep dive, narrowly avoiding a massive boulder. The sudden drop left Zara's stomach in knots, but the maneuver worked. The Droxians, unable to match the dropship's agility, overshot their mark, giving Marcus and Jessica a precious few seconds to gain some distance. "Status," Marcus called out, gripping the armrests of his seat. "They're still on us, but we got a bit of breathing room," Jessica replied, her voice strained. "We need to find a place to hide, or they'll catch us for sure." Zara's mind raced as she tried to think of a solution. She knew this planet better than the humans did, and if there was one thing she had learned during her time here, it was that Eltar was full of surprises. "There's a cave system nearby," she blurted out, her voice trembling. "It's hidden in the cliffs, just south of here. You can lose them in there." Marcus glanced at her, surprised by the sudden outburst. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Zara nodded, her eyes wide with fear and determination. "It's the only place they won't be able to track us." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Jessica, take us to those cliffs. Let's see if we can shake them off." Jessica adjusted their course, steering the dropship towards the coordinates Zora had provided. The cliffs loomed ahead, their jagged edges casting long shadows across the land. As they approached, the entrance to the cave system became visible, a narrow opening hidden among the rocks. The dropship swooped down, slipping into the cave with barely enough clearance to avoid scraping the sides. Inside, the darkness was nearly impenetrable, the only light coming from the ship's exterior lights as they cast eerie beams across the rough walls. "Kill the lights," Marcus ordered. "We can't risk being detected." Jessica complied, plunging the interior into near darkness. The only sounds were the soft hum of the ship's systems and the distant echoes of the Droxian ships passing overhead. "They'll scan the area, but they won't find us," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible in the quiet. "This cave system is extensive. We should be safe here for a while. Marcus nodded, impressed by her knowledge of the planet. You did good, Zora. You might have just saved all our lives. Zora blushed at the praise, but her mind was still racing. She knew they were safe for now, but the Droxians wouldn't give up easily. They would search the area thoroughly, and it was only a matter of time before they expanded their search. As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the dropship remained high. Jessica monitored the sensors, her eyes flicking between the readings and the viewport, searching for any sign of the enemy. Marcus sat quietly, his mind already working on their next move. We can't stay here forever, Jessica finally said, breaking the silence. We need to find that energy source and get off this planet before the Droxians come back in force. Zara hesitated, her mind torn between the desire to help her new allies and the fear of what they might discover. She knew more about Elter than she had let on, secrets that could change everything. But could she trust these humans with the truth? There's something you should know, Zara said, her voice trembling. The energy source you're looking for, it's not just any power source. It's something far more dangerous. Marcus frowned, his interest piqued. What do you mean? Zara took a deep breath, her heart pounding. It's a weapon of unimaginable power, hidden deep within the planet. My people knew about it, but they were too afraid to use it. That's why they left me behind, because I found out. Jessica's eyes widened in shock. A weapon? Why didn't you tell us sooner? I didn't know if I could trust you, Zora admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But now I see that you're different. You saved me. You're not like the others. Marcus's expression was unreadable as he processed the information. A weapon of unimaginable power, hidden within the very planet they were standing on. The implications were staggering, and the stakes had just been raised to an entirely new level. We need to find that weapon before the Droxians do, Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with determination. If they get their hands on it, it could mean the end for all of us. Zara nodded, her resolve strengthening. She had been abandoned, left to die on a hostile world, but now she had a chance to make a difference. She wouldn't let the Droxians win, not after everything she had been through. As the dropship prepared to leave the safety of the cave, Zara couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. They were about to embark on a mission that could determine the fate of countless lives, and the weight of that responsibility was overwhelming. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had found allies in the most unlikely of places, and together they would face whatever dangers lay ahead. The dropship emerged from the cave system just as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a soft, golden light across the landscape. The Droxian patrols had moved on, their search proving fruitless in the labyrinthine caves. But Captain Marcus Hale knew their reprieve was only temporary. They had to move quickly. Zara sat quietly in the corner of the ship, her eyes focused on the rugged terrain outside. The revelation she had shared weighed heavily on her mind. The weapon hidden within Eltar was more than just a tool of destruction. It was a force of nature, a power that could reshape the galaxy if it fell into the wrong hands. Zara, Marcus's voice cut through her thoughts, bringing her back to the present. Do you know where this weapon is located? Zara nodded slowly, her gaze still fixed on the horizon. Yes, it's deep within the planet, in a place the Kaltorians called the Heart of Elter. It's a massive underground chamber, protected by ancient defenses. Only those who know the way can reach it. Marcus exchanged a glance with Jessica, who had been listening intently. Then that's where we're headed. We need to secure this weapon before the Droxians do. Zara hesitated, her mind racing with doubts. The Heart of Eltar was a place of legend among her people, a place where the most powerful forces in the galaxy converged. She had only heard stories about it, tales passed down through generations. But now she was about to lead these humans into the unknown, and the thought filled her with fear. What if we can't control it? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What if we unleash something we can't stop? Marcus's expression softened as he approached her. We don't have a choice, Zara. If the Druksians find that weapon, they'll use it to conquer the entire galaxy. We have to try, no matter the risks. Zara looked up at him, searching his eyes for any sign of doubt. But all she saw was determination, a resolve to protect not just his own people, but everyone in the galaxy from the threat of the Druksians. "I'll guide you," she said finally, her voice trembling but resolute. "But we have to be careful. The heart of Eltar is not just a weapon. It's alive. It senses fear, doubt, and anger. If we're not careful, it could destroy us all." Marcus nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "We'll do whatever it takes. Just lead the way." The journey to the heart of Eltar was treacherous, the landscape becoming more hostile as they ventured deeper into the planet's interior. The air grew thick with the scent of sulfur, and the ground beneath them rumbled ominously, as if the planet itself was alive and aware of their presence. As they descended into the depths, Zara felt a growing sense of unease. The path they were following was one she had only heard of in whispers, a path that few had ever taken. The deeper they went, the more she felt the presence of the heart, a powerful force that seemed to pulse with every step they took. Finally, they reached the entrance to the heart of Eltar, a massive ancient door carved into the side of a cliff. The door was adorned with intricate symbols, glowing faintly with a light that seemed to emanate from within the stone itself. "This is it," Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The heart of Eltar lies beyond this door." Marcus and Jessica exchanged a glance, both of them sensing the enormity of the moment. They had come so far, faced so many dangers, and now they stood on the brink of discovering a power that could change the fate of the galaxy. "Open it," Marcus said, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. Zara stepped forward, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch the door. The moment her fingers made contact with the stone, the symbols began to glow brighter, their light filling the cavern with a soft, ethereal glow. The door rumbled, slowly grinding open to reveal a vast, underground chamber bathed in an otherworldly light. The heart of Eltar was unlike anything they had ever seen. The chamber was massive, its walls lined with towering pillars that seemed to stretch endlessly into the darkness above. At the center of the chamber, suspended in midair, was a glowing orb of energy, pulsating with a power that seemed to resonate with the very core of the planet. "This is it," Zara whispered, her voice filled with awe and fear. "The heart of Eltar." Marcus stared at the orb, his mind racing with the possibilities. If they could harness this power, they could defeat the Druksians and protect the galaxy from their tyranny. But the risks were immense. One wrong move, and they could unleash a force that would consume them all. "We need to secure the chamber," Marcus said, his voice firm. "Jessica, set up a perimeter. Zara, can you tell us more about how to control this thing?" Zara nodded, though her expression was one of uncertainty. It's said that the heart responds to the emotions of those who seek to control it. If we approach it with pure intentions, it may allow us to harness its power. But if we bring anger, fear, or hatred, it could destroy us. Jessica moved quickly, setting up defensive positions around the chamber, while Zara led Marcus closer to the orb. As they approached, the energy within the heart seemed to intensify, reacting to their presence. Zara could feel the power radiating from it, a power that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Marcus reached out cautiously, his hand hovering just inches from the orb. He could feel the heat emanating from it, a warmth that seemed to penetrate deep into his soul. For a moment, he hesitated, the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. But then he thought of the Druksians, of the countless lives that depended on them, and his resolve hardened. "We're here to protect the galaxy," he said softly, as if speaking directly to the heart. "We seek your power not for conquest, but for defense. Help us stop those who would use you for evil." Zara watched in silence, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the heart responding to Marcus's words, its glow intensifying, as if acknowledging his intentions. But there was still an undercurrent of danger, a sense that the heart was testing them. probing their deepest emotions. Suddenly, the ground beneath them rumbled, and the chamber was filled with a deafening roar. The orb flared brightly, and Zara felt a wave of energy wash over her, knocking her to the ground. Marcus staggered, struggling to maintain his balance as the heart's power surged around them. "What's happening?" Jessica shouted, her voice barely audible over the noise. "The heart is reacting to something," Zara replied, her voice trembling with fear. "Something's wrong." Before they could react, the chamber was plunged into darkness, the light of the heart extinguished in an instant. The silence that followed was oppressive, the air thick with tension as they waited, hearts pounding, for whatever was to come next. And then, from the darkness, a voice echoed through the chamber, a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Who dares to awaken the heart of Eltar?" Zara's blood ran cold as the voice reverberated through her very being. This was no ordinary challenge. They had awakened something ancient, something powerful, and its intentions were far from clear. "Identify yourselves," the voice demanded, its tone both commanding and filled with an eerie calm. Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady as he responded. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We seek the power of the heart to defend the galaxy from those who would use it for destruction." There was a long pause, the silence hanging heavily in the air. Zara could feel the weight of the unseen presence, a being of immense power that seemed to be evaluating them, judging their worthiness. "Humans," the voice finally said, its tone unreadable. "You seek to wield the power of the heart for noble purposes, but do you truly understand the responsibility that comes with it? The heart of Eltar is not a mere weapon. It is a force of creation and destruction, a power that shapes the very fabric of reality. Only those who are pure of heart, free of fear and hatred, can hope to control it. Are you prepared to face the trials that lie ahead?" Marcus hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "We are. We'll do whatever it takes to protect our galaxy." The voice was silent again, and then slowly, the chamber began to fill with light once more. The heart of Eltar flared to life, its glow casting long shadows across the cavern. Zara could feel the energy pulsing through the air, a power that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. "Very well," the voice said, its tone almost approving. "The trials of the heart shall test your resolve, your courage, and your purity of heart. Only those who pass shall be granted the power to wield the heart of Eltar. Prepare yourselves, humans. Your true test begins now." As the last echoes of the voice faded away, Zara felt a deep sense of dread settle over her. The trials of the heart were legendary, spoken of in hushed tones among her people. They were said to be nearly impossible to overcome, designed to test the very essence of one's soul. But as she looked at Marcus and Jessica, she felt a glimmer of hope. These humans had already shown courage, determination, and a willingness to protect others. If anyone could pass the trials, it would be them. And so, with hearts pounding and minds steeled for the challenges ahead, they prepared to face the trials of the heart of Eltar, knowing that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The air within the chamber grew colder, a biting chill that seeped into their bones. The once dimly lit walls now glowed with a strange light, casting eerie shadows across the cavern. Zara, Marcus, and Jessica stood in silence, waiting for the trials to begin. They could feel the immense power of the heart of Eltar pulsing around them, a reminder of the stakes they faced. Without warning, the ground beneath them trembled, and the chamber shifted. The smooth floor split apart, revealing a narrow path that led deeper into the heart of the planet. There was no turning back now. They had to proceed. "The first trial," the disembodied voice echoed through the chamber, "is the trial of fear. Only those who can confront and overcome their deepest fears will pass." Marcus exchanged a glance with Jessica and Zara. The look in his eyes was a mixture of determination and trepidation. Together, they stepped onto the narrow path, moving cautiously forward. The path led them into a cavernous space, filled with dense fog, obscuring their vision. The walls seemed to close in, the fog thickening with each step. Suddenly, the fog parted, and before each of them appeared visions drawn from their deepest fears. Marcus found himself back on Earth, in the middle of a burning city. The sky was filled with smoke, and the ground shook with the impact of bombs. Around him, civilians screamed for help, their voices filled with terror. His heart pounded as he tried to reach them, but no matter how hard he ran, the distance never closed. The realization that he was powerless to save them crushed his spirit. Jessica's trial was equally harrowing. She was aboard a spaceship, alone, drifting through the cold void of space. The control panels flickered with warnings, indicating catastrophic failures across the ship. Her oxygen levels were dangerously low, and she was running out of time. The isolation, the suffocating silence, and the inevitability of her fate threatened to overwhelm her. Zara's vision was different yet just as terrifying. She stood before her Kaltorian people, who regarded her with disdain and disgust. They accused her of betrayal, of weakness, of bringing shame upon their proud race. Their words cut deeper than any weapon, and she felt the weight of their expectations crushing her. She had always feared rejection and abandonment, and now it seemed that fear had manifested into a cruel reality. The heart of Eltar was testing them, probing their minds for the deepest, most primal fears. But the test was not about succumbing to those fears. It was about facing them, acknowledging them, and finding the strength to move beyond them. Marcus, heart racing, forced himself to stop running. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes, focusing on the mission, on why they had come to Eltar in the first place. The vision around him began to fade as he reaffirmed his resolve. He was not powerless. He had a purpose, and he would see it through. Jessica fought against the overwhelming sense of isolation. She focused on the people she cared about, on the connections she had made, on the mission that still lay ahead. She knew she wasn't truly alone, and with that realization, the vision of the dying ship began to dissolve. Zara, trembling, faced her accusers. She took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. She had always tried to live up to the expectations of her people, but she now realized that she had to forge her own path. She was not defined by their judgment. She had made choices, and she would stand by them. The vision of her people faded, replaced by a calm determination. The fog lifted, and the three of them found themselves back in the chamber. The narrow path continued before them, but the air felt lighter. The oppressive weight of the trial lifted. "You have faced your fears," the voice echoed once more, "but your trials are not yet over. Proceed to the trial of sacrifice." They moved forward, the path leading them to a large, circular chamber with a pedestal at its center. On the pedestal rested three objects: a dagger, a vial of liquid, and a small, ornate box. The trial of sacrifice will test your willingness to give up what you hold most dear. To pass, you must choose to sacrifice one of these items, knowing that what you give up may never be regained. The three of them approached the pedestal cautiously, examining the items. Each object seemed to call out to them, resonating with something deep within their souls. Marcus was drawn to the dagger. It was a symbol of protection, of the ability to defend those he cared about. Sacrificing it would mean giving up his ability to protect his comrades and himself. Jessica was captivated by the vial. It contained a liquid that shimmered with an otherworldly light. She sensed that it was a cure, a remedy for some unknown affliction. To sacrifice it would mean giving up the chance to heal those in need. Zara's attention was fixed on the box. It was a relic of her people, a symbol of her heritage, and the knowledge of her ancestors. Sacrificing it would mean severing her last tie to her culture and history. The choice before them was agonizing. Each of them understood the weight of the decision, but they also knew that the trial required a true sacrifice. They couldn't choose lightly. "I'll take the dagger," Marcus said after a moment of silence. "I've always believed in protecting others, but maybe it's time to trust that others can protect themselves." Jessica hesitated, her gaze lingering on the vial. "This could save lives," she murmured. But I have to believe that there are other ways to heal, other ways to help. Zara's hands trembled as she reached for the box. It was a part of her, a connection to her people that she had never been able to let go of. But now she realized that she had to forge her own path, independent of her past. One by one, they placed their chosen items on the pedestal and stepped back. The moment they did, the items vanished in a flash of light, and the room fell silent. "You have passed the trial of sacrifice," the voice said, its tone almost reverent. "You have proven your willingness to give up what you hold most dear for the greater good. But one trial remains, the trial of unity." The path continued, leading them to the final chamber. It was a vast, open space, dominated by a large, glowing crystal at its center. The crystal pulsed with the same energy as the heart of Eltar, its light casting dancing shadows across the walls. "The trial of unity will test your ability to work together, to unite your strengths and overcome the challenges that lie ahead. Only by combining your skills and trust in each other will you succeed." As soon as the voice finished speaking, the chamber began to shift. The ground shook, and massive stone constructs emerged from the walls, their eyes glowing with an ominous light. They moved towards Marcus, Jessica, and Zara with a menacing intent. "Together," Marcus shouted, drawing his weapon. Jessica and Zara followed his lead, each of them falling into a natural rhythm. They had faced countless dangers before, but this was different. This was a test of their unity, their ability to function as a single, cohesive unit. The stone constructs were powerful, their strikes shaking the ground and sending shockwaves through the chamber. But Marcus, Jessica, and Zara fought back with determination. They covered each other's weaknesses, anticipated each other's movements, and struck with precision. Marcus used his strength and combat training to engage the constructs head-on, drawing their attention and absorbing their attacks. Jessica, quick and agile, moved around the battlefield, finding weak spots and exploiting them with surgical precision. Zara, using her knowledge of the planet's energy, channeled the power of the heart to weaken the constructs, making them vulnerable to their attacks. The battle was intense, but they fought as one. They trusted each other, relied on each other, and together they overwhelmed the constructs. One by one, the stone giants fell, crumbling into dust. As the last construct was defeated, the chamber grew still. The glowing crystal at the center of the room began to pulse with a brighter light, filling the chamber with warmth. "You have passed the trial of unity," the voice echoed through the chamber. "By working together, you have proven that you are worthy of the heart of Eltar. The power you seek is now yours to wield. But remember this, with great power comes great responsibility. Use it wisely, for the fate of the galaxy rests in your hands." The crystal's light intensified, and a beam of energy shot from it, enveloping Marcus, Jessica, and Zara. They felt the power of the heart of Eltar surge through them, a force unlike anything they had ever experienced. It was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. They could feel the energy connecting them, binding them together as one. As the light began to fade, they found themselves back in the original chamber, standing before the glowing orb that was the heart of Eltar. The voice, now calm and serene, spoke once more. "The heart of Eltar is yours. Go now, and protect the galaxy from those who would seek to destroy it." Marcus, Jessica, and Zara exchanged a glance, their expressions a mixture of awe and determination. They had passed the trials, and now they possessed a power that could change the course of the galaxy. But with that power came a heavy burden, the responsibility to use it for the greater good. As they made their way back to the dropship, the weight of their mission settled on their shoulders. They had succeeded, but their journey was far from over. The Droxian threat was still looming, and the fate of countless lives depended on what they did next. But as they lifted off from the surface of Eltar, the heart's power thrumming through their veins, they knew one thing for certain. They were ready for whatever lay ahead. Together, They would face the challenges of the galaxy, united by a bond forged in the trials of the heart of Elter. And with that bond, they would protect the galaxy from any threat, no matter how great. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same.